And
All right, should we just do introductions real quick?
Yep.
My name is Kayla Staley. I teach PE, elementary PE, and high school weights, and then a 6th grade social studies and grammar class.
I'll go next. I'm Mason Urban. I teach at Norton Community High School and Norton Junior High School, and I teach wood shop, and then I also have some construction classes thrown in there as well.
I'm Holly Stone from Republic County Junior Senior High School. I teach Welding 1, Natural Resource Management, Horticulture, and the Freshman Ag Science class.
And I'm Taylor Zartman. I teach at Humboldt High School, and I teach journalism. So that includes yearbook, newspaper, photography, graphic design, audio, video, and yeah, those fun ones.
Taylor, I don't think you said where you were from earlier, because I would have caught on. My husband grew up in Iola, so
yeah,
I know exactly where Humboldt is.
Yep. Right next to
us. The Geffords?
Yes.
Okay. Sean and my husband Aaron were really good friends. Or are
how
good
funny.
Friends, I should say.
My son, I know Kylie. I don't really know Sean, but I know Kylie. And then my son goes to daycare with little Hayes.
Okay. So, what a small world.
Small world. I know. I love that.
Well, one of the first topics we have is describing the concepts in the article that we read. Did anything stand out to anybody that they felt really applied to them or was useful to them right away?
Well, I'll start this off. To be honest, I enjoyed this article. I found it very interesting. Because we've all noticed these things that they're talking about. I had never known the correct terms for each item that they were talking about. One of the things that stood out to me was the attitudes, the explicit versus implicit. Of course, we all know we have our out loud attitudes that we all share. And I guess I never knew the real names for it, but those implicit ones that you just kind of keep to yourself, I found that, interesting and a little ways through the article about how it says, sometimes we don't share our attitudes when we know they might not be perceived the way you want them to by others, depending on who you're surrounded by. I know living in Minnesota versus Kansas, views are a little different up there. So sometimes you had to be careful. I mean, you shouldn't have to be careful, but sometimes you do, depending on who's around. And I just found that really interesting. And I could totally relate to sometimes it's better to keep quiet than it is to maybe pick an argument unless you're prepared and ready for it. So I found that part really interesting.
On that, I think it's also interesting, the idea in a kid's head, like if they were going to provide an answer or feedback to you, how for the same reason, if I think I might be wrong or I am not sure that I have the answer, that same thing kind of happens, like, oh, I'm not even going to try. And that's the scaredness to fail, or the fear of failure.
Right. Or maybe you don't agree with the teacher and you're scared to voice that because, you hope there's no repercussions, but, there's some of those that are just stuck in their ways. And yeah, I could see that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good point. Did anyone else have anything they want to specifically bring up that they thought was applicable or that they keyed in on?
The first thing that stuck out to me was like the schema of how people have their ways of thinking before they even know 100%. That was a big thing with me coming back to my hometown to teach, because I'm a 2021 graduate from this high school. So I'm here 2 years later with kids that I went to high school with. So they came in thinking that I was going to be like a pushover. Yeah, I was going to be their friend.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help the fact that the previous teacher kind of just let them do whatever they wanted to. So they came in thinking they were going to get to do whatever they wanted to, and that I was going to be their friend. But they learned quick that wasn't how it was going to be this year.
Yeah. So it's not Mason anymore. It's Mr. Urban.
Exactly. Yep. And I have
Yeah.
to repeat that every day. But that was one thing that stuck out to me right from the get-go.
Are you finding it's getting better, or is it still a big struggle of a mental shift for them?
That's what I was wondering too.
Yeah, it's getting a lot better. Like my first few days were pretty rough, and then I set my expectations with them, let them know how things were going to go, and then they respected
Good.
that for the most part. But it's hard knowing all of these kids from throughout my childhood and then having to be their teacher, not their friend.
Right.
So you just graduated high school in 2021?
Yeah. So I rushed through my bachelor's. I went
That's
to
what I was wondering.
Yeah, I went to Hayes and I rushed through 4 years of school
Oh.
too. And
Holy
now
cow.
I'm doing this, obviously.
That is a very unique situation for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
How
Man, I really
crazy.
am the old lady in the room. Jeez, gosh. Oh, wow. But also on that same note, knowing all those kids, because I moved back to my hometown. So I know all of these kids as parents. Is that
Mhm.
kind of a card you keep in your back pocket, Mason, of don't make me have to talk to mom and dad?
Yeah, so that's actually really helped. So you have the kids with good parents who think they're above the rules. So then you have a casual conversation with their parent and then their parent puts them in line at home. So that's
Mm-hmm.
helped me out, but it's
Sure.
also, it has its up and downs, I should say.
Right.
On the schema that I noted in a very like practical skill application way and for young kids in PE, like today we actually played a game called striker ball, and the objective is the ball's on the ground and then you hit it. It's almost as if you're kicking it, but you use your hand and then you try to score goals. And even as I'm explaining it, their brains automatically went to, I'm throwing this ball, because hands are made for throwing, not hitting or kicking. And so it was a good shift for me to be like, okay, we're making an association somewhere that's inappropriate or not correct, and then be able to call upon a term that they is familiar to them, like, okay, it's kicking but with your hands. And so in like a very technical way, very different than your way, but in a technical like skill way, that was kind of my example in from the text.
Okay. Do we want to just go right on to the next one then?
Sounds good.
Which I think we kind of already talked about as we were doing that first one.
I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even kind of the third one, talking about the efficacy of that, how well it's going, how well those things are kind of going. We've touched on that as well.
Right. I guess I can add another on that second one. I have a couple kids actually in the same classroom, two totally different kids that need different teaching styles. I have one that is, and I actually wrote about him on that little, the kids that we were supposed to, right? Yeah. So actually both of them are my examples right here. I have one kiddo who was a transfer from another school, got in a lot of trouble at the other school, started off the first day coming in trying to just blow everybody away with his, I'm the new kid, here's the shock factor, what you gonna do about it, Mrs. Stone? One term I pulled out is that hot cognition. So he already had, his viewpoint from all the other schools, thinking nobody likes me, I don't know why I'm here, I'm just gonna get in trouble, all the teachers are the same, automatic dislike, directional goals, or I'm not going to do any good, so why try? And that has been kind of a challenge because he likes to push it. He really likes to push it. And all of the other kids in the class have had me as a sub before, and they know I don't like to be pushed. So it has been a real patience builder on my part, not to just blow up, I've had to correct him in front of the class before, just because there was no time to take him outside. Plus it kind of set an example for everybody else of, ooh, she's not backing down. But it was just, as I was reading this, I thought, man, he already has this viewpoint set in his mind. How can I get him to change that? So every day it's, okay, so-and-so's coming, put on a happy face, get my patients ready, treat him the same as I do everybody else, give him, the benefit of the doubt. He's needed a couple reminders, but to be honest, ever since that first day, it really hasn't been too bad. And then I have another one who she has done a 180. Last year, she was a real issue for a lot of teachers. And I was nervous when I saw that I had her in my class. She's another one of, well, these teachers are all the same. I don't care. Middle finger to everybody. She has come in this year, and it's like the chameleon effect that they were talking about in the article. She sees these other kids enjoying the class, having a great time. Participation has been excellent. So she's kind of taken on that other role of, oh, okay, well, I see how these kids have it if I start emulating them. And she has just, done a complete 180 and has been a joy. Maybe joy's a little stretch, but she has been quite nice to have in class. So it's been pleasant. She's one of those where you kind of walk on eggshells because you never know what her day has been. But so far, so good. Knock on wood. But yeah, just like with that other student, I go in every day, treat them the same, second chance. So I'll always have something to write about in our reflections. And there's never a dull moment in that class.
What is your give and take with, I have a couple students, also the student I wrote about, and his behaviors are more so, he's a busybody. And so getting instructions at the beginning of class is he just wants to play so bad that he just can't hardly contain himself. And I'm trying, and this is also kind of what I wrote about, trying to strike this balance of, I understand he needs to move and play and get to it. And so I'm okay with a bit of moving around when, we're instructing, I like to have the kids paying attention, but I'm also like, I don't want it to be, okay, this kid can do this. Why can't I do that too? I want to spin around or, sit somewhere where I'm not supposed to sit or things like that. So I'm having a hard time striking a balance of, if I try to correct everything he did, I would never be able to explain the directions. It just prolongs the problem.
Right.
So does anyone have any kind of just thoughts on that or how you guys are handling that right now?
Do you have them do any kind of warm up before you do instructions?
Yeah, that's part of it. We're moving. And so there is this, we go back and forth, running, skipping, locomotor type stuff. And even in that, he just
wear him out.
He just I know, I just need to make him run some laps or something like that. But even cause we, the way our gym is there's the sideline and then it's a stair that goes to the stands. It's very small, compact. And so we don't want him to get onto the stairs, dangerous, jumping off, whatever, things like that.
Sure.
He's just constantly, but if I correct it, if every single time all I'm doing is ever talking to this one student.
I kind of have the same issue. In a classroom setting, I have a handful of kids that just can't sit still, can't keep their mouths closed. They're just making these random noises all the time. And it's just constant telling them what to do. And it gets to the point where it's more work for me to tell them what to do when they're not even going to listen to it. Sometimes I just have to ignore the little things.
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Right. But yet at the same time, like in Kayla's case, you don't want those other kids to feed off of his actions and be like, well, if he can do that, I'm
There's no
gonna
rules.
stand here and spin instead of, Yeah, that's tricky.
were your behaviors that you were describing in your class, Holly, the first kid, is it as much just more his personality about things, or is it more behavior stuff? Is more personality about things?
Personality. Personality. He always has something to say.
Yeah.
Always has that last word, and that just I'm learning. I am
Yeah.
growing as a person. My mindset is growing. But yeah, I just, like Mason said, I have to let those little things go. But yeah, it's a personality. They're all high schoolers. That class is a bunch of juniors, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so as far as not being able to sit still or stuff, whatever, that's not really an issue, but it's just his personality is just one of those, I don't know, it'd be different if his home life was different, I think.
Yeah.
So I think he wants the attention, and he'll get it even if it's not in a good way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a little kid running around, that's a whole different box of marbles.
Yeah. I was just curious if you had experienced that and what you were doing with that, but I got some good ideas from the online. I appreciated that little kind of review we did so far of things that we were noticing or students like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did
We're not
anyone?
alone.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not alone. Yeah.
I made a couple connections between what my project was on for this week, or I don't know if everyone's finished it yet. It's not due yet, but
I haven't.
if kind of what some of the other readings were to this one.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ones that I was making was just in my terminology and the words that I use. Active learning was kind of the strategy that I implement the most in PE, because just including them in the learning process. And I've just really found, kind of echoed in what we were talking about, the schema, like the word choice is so important in how I describe something. I would say even in my first handful of classes, I was either repetitive or I was too wordy, and I have elementary. And so you get them for like, you get to give instructions for just a short period of time. And if you don't have the words in the most efficient way possible, they're not going to, be able to make the connections that you're wanting them to make and things like that. And so that was kind of a connection I made. And I was curious if anyone else found that they had that as well.
So to be honest, I have
Sorry.
not finished my assignment. So
No,
kudos
I
to
haven't
you,
either.
Kayla, for being on top of stuff.
I haven't even started looking at this week's yet, so
It was
I
good.
don't
I haven't had time
No,
yet.
no
It was
worries.
good. Okay, good.
I would recommend there was an article, it's titled like blog : The Science of Learning. I really liked how that one broke down. It was like 6 main questions. And then I've just keyed in on one of them: how do students learn and retain new information? It's kind of a meta analysis of things. I would recommend reading that one. I found a lot of.
This one?
That's the one.
Okay. The shorter one of the two.
Well, you see, I'm on to something. No, I'm kidding. But it was a lot of good information, and each of the points, each of the questions in there, it kind of gave this, what does it look like, or like what's the point they're making, and then here's examples of what that looks like in a math class, and I really appreciated that part of it because it helped me translate.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, apply it to what you're doing. Yes, absolutely. Have you talked to his teacher?
Yes.
Getting any ideas? Sorry.
He's on a behavior IEP, not to go back, but he's on a behavior IEP. And so we document and chart everything. So we have conversations daily about it.
Okay.
And it's this constant battle of, I want him to be able to move, but there has to be consequences for not following. And so I'm just in this state of, then we remove him and he does like an exercise by himself until he can go back in. But I'm trying to find a way that I can hopefully just help him harness it for just, to just be in control, so we never have to get removed from the game.
Yes. And it's still early in the year.
Yeah.
Sometimes, with some of those kids, even as juniors in high school, it takes a while.
Yes.
It takes a while. But Taylor, you've been, not to put you on the spot, but any thoughts? Because you have, let's see, do you have high schoolers
Yes.
for journalism? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, and all those journalism kids are pretty chill.
I was gonna say I'm pretty fortunate in the kids that I get. It's a lot of, the kids that you want in your classes. A lot of times they're
Yeah.
hard workers and they're, good behaviors for the most part. For the
They
most
want
part.
to be there.
Yeah, and they want to be there. Luckily, as an elective, it's nice to have that. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I don't have to deal with a lot of that. I did last year though, with having like PE and then having the middle school class. The middle school class was rough. It was 25 middle schoolers every day crammed in a little computer lab, and it was just, I was not ready for that. I was not prepared for that. I had several of them, like Holly, like your boy, the new one that comes in and just like, wants to talk about everything and make comments all the time. Like I had like 5 of those every day.
Ugh.
It was hard to
Rough.
handle. I didn't manage that class very well, and I wish I would have known a lot of the things that I know now.
So on that, what would you do differently? If you could go back with what you have now,
Well,
what would you do differently?
well, I would have, from day one, I would have set more clear expectations, set more ground rules, been more firm with the consequences. Like they just kind of took over, especially being in that little room, and it would just get chaotic, and they would just take over some days, and some days I was just like, screw it, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Keep them alive
so-
and help them learn a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I was spending most of my time like correcting behaviors instead of actually getting to teach. So it took forever to get through like one module or one unit of information. So I definitely would have changed that a lot. I would have utilized our discipline system better, but I really didn't have a lot of support from our admin. The middle school principal is kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So
That
that's
is
kind of on my own.
Yeah, that's one thing I am fortunate to have is my mentor, who she's considered a mean teacher in junior high. So she has been there she witnessed the first day, and oh my, I mean, she was right there to see me correct that, and she just kind of gave me the
Good.
So, I felt good. If Mrs. Scott thought I did okay, then I really must have done okay. But not only has she been great, but it has been expressed to me that if you think he's going to be a problem out in the shop, like if it's going to be a safety issue, he can go. It is an elective. He can go. So he doesn't know that. I'm just kind of keeping that in my back pocket. I hope it doesn't come to that, because I can, every once in a while, I can see this really good kid peek through. So I'm just kind of holding on to those moments a little bit.
Mason, you said you have behaviors. Do you see behaviors that are unsafe in that kind of setting?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like in the same thing as Holly. I have a few kids who they have really, really bad days, and like they can't control themselves, and it's hard to see them out in the shop using sharp objects and stuff like that. But then you have the days where they're really good. And something that kind of caught my eye reading this, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Holly, was the chameleon effect. And I have one class where there's about 4 or 5 boys. They piggyback off one another, and that kind of relates to the chameleon effect. And so they're just a terror group of 5. And then I have this one boy who all the other teachers kind of despise, but he's in a good class, and I don't have a single problem with him. And that's showing the opposite side of the chameleon effect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
he-
so
he's
interesting.
perfect. He's perfect in my class, but all the other teachers talk about how much of a terror he is. But
Huh.
yeah, there are a few of those kids where the safety concern has crossed my mind, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Hopefully it doesn't get
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah. It's scary to think about.
That's interesting. I hadn't read about the chameleon effect part yet. I didn't get that far, but that's how it was a lot with the middle schoolers that I had last year. Because I noticed there were several of them that honestly could be really nice. Unfortunately, they were all boys that caused me problems, but they could be really nice boys if I got to talk to them and like spend time with them more
Mhm.
individually. But it would just get out of control when they would feed off of each other
Right.
and start to act like each other.
Right. And then you have those days where one or two of them were gone. And it was like
And it was a good day.
best day ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's sad that, those are the good days that,
I
you
know.
know what I mean? Yeah. But that would be hard. 25. What class was that for?
For me,
Year 25? Yeah.
that was the computers class.
No. Yeah. So it's not like they can even really get up and
Yeah, I know.
do something with that energy. Yeah. That
No,
kudos to you for getting through that. I don't know how you did it.
it was rough.
Oh, goodness.
I have right now my 6th grade class. They have the group of boys that every year the next grade up is just like worried about them.
Mm-hmm.
And, what you Taylor and Holly were both saying about expectations. I did not do that well last year. I'm a very relational teacher.
Yeah.
And so when I had
same.
elementary, I was like, I need rules because kids need boundaries and rules. But when it came to middle school, I was like, I'm going to lean on my relational techniques. But if you don't have a relationship with them, then you have nothing, so it was a horrible idea. And it was exactly kind of what Taylor was discussing. And so this year I had the law laid down. I mean, didn't do it to the letter of the law. We redid it as a class and so that helped, but they still have their days when they're, just feeling extra rowdy. And I found that with the subject I teach, social studies and grammar, I can often break them into groups and they're just in opposite corners of the room. And that has helped me quite a bit, is going to group work and them not being together only with the people in their group kind of allows them to like chill out a little bit more.
Right. Right.
Okay, so just so we know, I got a notification that we were about 5 minutes until the end of the Zoom call because I don't have
Okay.
or anything. So does anyone have
Sure.
anything else they want to add in or?
I think you guys, I was going to share with you while you were saying that story, but I think you guys have figured it out. It's always easier to be hard from the beginning, and to have your little let up moments than it is to rein them, back in. And I think they know I can be a mean mom if I have to. They've all heard me yell outside at sporting events or whatever. But yeah, I think you guys are doing great. You sound like you've learned, and yeah, yay. I'm glad I'm not the only one with rough days, rough hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we have some real highlights too. I mean, for the most part, it's just that one class that I worry about, and everybody else is pretty awesome. It's like your journalism class, Taylor. They're happy to be there.
Yes.
So, all right.
Well,
Well,
that's
is that all
awesome.
we had to do for that?
I think so. So I'll end the recording, then I'll put it on a YouTube link, and I'll send you guys the link and let you know once it gets posted on Blackboard.
Great.
All right.
All
Awesome.
right.
I
Good to
look
meet
forward
y'all.
to talking with y'all again. That's
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
kind of fun.
yeah.
All right.
Well, have a great evening.
You too.
Good luck on the rest of the week. We got 2 more days.
Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. See you guys.
Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.